Many schools around Maine are beginning to understand the ethical, economic, and environmental problems created through the wasting of food. Many are tackling these issues head-on with inspiring educational models that save money while teaching valuable hands-on lessons. One of the best of these programs is at Massabesic Middle School. I sat down recently with David Pope, the award-winning teacher who first helped his students and fellow staff create what has become the best food waste recycling program at a Maine school. I began by asking David how the program got started.
So it started 7 years ago. I was new, a year or two new to the building, and I didn't really know where to begin. And also kind of feeling out my place and how much I could get permission for. I happened to be in the summertime, and I was at the East End in Portland, and my kids were playing at a playground, and I happened to just start talking up with another parent who was there who worked for Chilwaukee, and we made this connection that Chilwaukee was putting on this zero waste challenge that coming school year. I pitched it to the kids as a challenge, knowing that most kids love a good challenge.
Yeah, right.
The students focused on these 6 different facets that the challenge wanted us to focus on. And of course there's 6 different areas that you can focus on, and we had a plan for each one, but then we needed to really focus where is our best effort going to show the largest gains, and that happened to be the cafeteria. So we went in to the cafeteria and really changed things around. This is kind of pushing the envelope of the way things operated, and you're dealing with a school of 700 students and 4 different lunches. So any kind of tweak to that flow can create all sorts of issues. But administration, again, very supportive.
Was that like a big staff meeting where you had this discussion, or did you go around to each individual person?
I kind of did an email. I think I mentioned it at a staff meeting. You can also send out an email kind of clarifying what we're trying to do. And I also, in the cafeteria, every lunch I made a short presentation, and our principal, Mark Fisher, did the same thing.
Yeah.
Just explaining what we're trying to do in the process. And it took, I think it was really 3 or 4 days, and it sorted itself out, and we had a new flow, and it worked.
And it was like you've been doing that forever.
Yeah, we had a few hiccups here and there, but the student volunteers were in the lines, kind of helping the process. So we spent time in my class going over like what would work best for getting the flow. Sure. And every day we'd kind of meet after what worked today, what didn't work, how can we improve it. And so we'd redirect the students, to one door or another, or how, move a bin here, move it there. And finally, after a couple weeks of tweaking things, we had a great system. After we got that going for a few weeks, I then had the students collect the weight data, and we were able to take a look at the numbers, and it was pretty amazing. Out of what normally would go into the trash, we were able to separate about 73% of the material.
Divert that away from
the trash.
Yeah.
Yep. And I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30% was compost.
Yeah.
At that particular time, 30% compost, because we weren't composting any meats or cheese or anything like that, just because of concerns, being able to compost those kinds of materials. And then the rest was liquids and milk cartons.
Yeah.
And that was the first year. And since then, we've made a few tweaks to the process for better flow, a little faster, getting the kids out. I mean, it was okay before, but we reduced the number of sorting bins to just compost, which now includes everything, including napkins and any paper products, meats, cheeses. So we had all this compost material, and we're like, what are we going to do with this? We had no place to put it initially, and so that initial weighing, it would then go into the dumpster.
Yeah.
Because we had no place to put it. And then we realized that we were ready for another phase, to change things at our own school and kind of get kids involved in composting at the school facility. And that's when we contacted Mark King.
Yeah. And
he came over. We did a site walk and figured out where the best place would be on school grounds, and after that we just went for it. We got our horse manure, everything he recommended.
So how does that work in terms of, do they deliver it, these farmers that are volunteering?
No, so that was one of the issues is our custodial staff, which the only way this program now works is that our custodial staff, in addition to our administration and the staff members and the students, the custodial staff are a key piece. They have to be involved.
Yeah.
And Wayne Cutting, our head custodian, when the compost leaves the cafeteria to go outside, he then is the person who handles it to get it to the compost pile.
Mm-hmm.
So he does everything outside.
Okay.
With that, and then I have students who then will go out and monitor the temperatures to make sure that, does it need to be turned? Is the compost pile exhausted? Has it gone through its process? Do we need to get more horse manure? And just kind of keep an eye on the logistics there. But he does all of the turning and adding of the material to it. And we go through this process where we've identified the pile as having 7 different locations, and
Yeah.
I number them, letter them. So at site A, we know the date when the material was added, and we go all the way around the pile. And so my students know however the pile is oriented, they know where A is and B and et cetera. And then sometimes we have to completely turn the pile to keep the process going. A lot of our food waste, let's just pick the apple. So if we have apple day, we have a ton of apples by volume and by weight that go into the compost. In a matter of a few days, that week it'll be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing temperatures 100 to 140, 130 is normal.
Yeah.
And we take temperatures at 12-inch and 24-inch depths.
Okay.
And so the material's cooking.
Yeah.
It's generating some heat all throughout the entire year.
Yeah. After you won the challenge with Chewonki, and then you decided, okay, well, we need to implement one of these focus areas, and we're going to focus on compost. And you went and talked with Mr. Fisher, the principal. I know he's been very supportive, but I think that's a challenge that a lot of schools have is having a teacher who recognizes there's value in this from a curriculum standpoint. There's value in this from how much money are we going to save if we can get this out. There's a lot of benefits, but sometimes there's a challenge in getting whether it's the principal or the custodian, there's somebody in the chain that you have to get on board.
Right.
And was it the case that at Massabesic that all these people just got it?
No. Change is difficult.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest challenge that we were predicting was going to be the cultural change in the cafeteria, not necessarily the composting aspect, but the sorting of materials and going through that process. When you're not doing that on a regular basis, or even students not doing it at home, and it's a whole new concept, you really have to educate not only the process but why.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of our initial efforts went into that. So one of the things that we did was milk cartons, for instance. We identified 227,000 milk cartons a year were being dumped.
Yeah.
That can be recycled. So what we did was we took a week's worth of milk cartons and we rinsed them out, cleaned them, and then we made a pyramid.
Yeah.
On the stage in front of the cafeteria. So anytime when they came in, they were watching this pyramid being made.
Cool.
And it turned out to be an enormous pyramid.
Just for
and
one
then,
week.
and then we created of course, guess how many milk cartons there
Yeah.
are. And so we made that as part of the lunch process. So we had kids guessing, and
Yeah.
then we had a winner at the end who
Yeah.
guessed the number of milk cartons. And we're talking, it was a significant numbers in the 2,000 to 3,000 milk cartons.
Right. In 1 week.
In 1 week.
Yeah.
It was an enormous pyramid.
That's a great.
But it was a
social
visual,
act.
so it was a
Yeah.
visual, and so they said, oh, well, they asked the question, and the question's answered. They just see
Yeah.
it. It's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And that's just milk cartons.
Right.
And now we're doing, not only milk cartons, but we're doing the salad containers and all the other pieces that can be recycled too. But it wasn't everybody on board, and you have a few, you had a few people that just, grumbled a little bit about, things being changed. But then, once they see, that it's worthwhile and they get it and they have their own questions answered, everything was great.
Yeah.
And it's been nothing but supportive since.
One of the things that I found interesting about Massabesic is that it's a very nice looking school, and you have literally just compost piles in front of the school and a pile of horse manure, just
Right.
piles,
Right.
where like parents drive up and they're right there, versus in places where I live, where we've had to build very fancy cedar compost bin, 5-bin systems,
Yeah.
and hide them behind the school. So that completely changed my bias, I guess, about
Yeah.
what that was going to be like. So how did you have to overcome that? Like Mark King saying, "This is a great spot,"
Right.
and then did somebody say, "We're going to have piles of horse manure dropped in front of the school"?
30 yards plus, and now somewhere around 70, 80 yards. Yeah. So when that site was identified, it's right at the activity entrance.
Yeah.
For all athletics and plays and any music program activities, and so that they all come right there to that entrance. And it's right there.
Yeah.
That was a joke at first, like, oh, I guess we're not going to be hiding this or build the fence big enough, and I think Mark Fisher, the principal, was just like, this is what the students are doing, this is what we're doing, why hide it? It's just, it's visible, let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think he kind of, there's benefit in people seeing what's being done.
Yeah.
The concern was, is it going to smell?
Right.
And is that going to be, an issue? And so we weren't exactly sure what was going to happen with that. And, Mark King assured us, if you guys are doing it, the way that we just kind of talked about, and I've seen your material, and I know if you get enough horse manure, and you keep an eye on the temperature, you shouldn't have any issues. And we haven't.
Yeah.
There haven't been any issues at all.
Yeah.
And this is our third year, right? Third year I think we're going into right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's interesting because that's I've been a commercial farmer for over a decade, and I compost a lot of material.
Yeah.
And I can tell people till I'm blue in the face that the exact same thing. If you're doing it properly, you're not going to have, it's not going to smell. You're not going to have flies. You're not going to have rats.
No. So the irony of the compost not smelling, we have fewer flies and issues than if that food was getting dumped into the dumpster.
Yeah.
Which was just a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, you walk out there, there'd be little puddles.
Composting at Massabesic is not an exercise that just ends with a pile of compost. David and his students initially created 4 raised beds to use the material they were producing. The next year they expanded to 6. The year after that, 12. Last year, David, his principal Mark, the head custodian Wayne, and the dining services staff decided to take it up a notch and applied for a $50,000 USDA farm-to-school planning grant. They were awarded the grant and are now in the process of building a 1/4-acre on-site farm to supply dining services with fresh produce. This farm will use most of the finished compost they produce. However, they will still have enough to sell, putting thousands of dollars a year back into their program.